Imagine walking through a bustling neighborhood of modern Cairo, honking cars, markets crowded with chatter, children darting between alleyways, and then, underfoot, buried just beneath the asphalt, a piece of ancient history sleeps. Not a coin. Not a shard of pottery. Not a worn statuette half forgotten. But something that once belonged to a pharaoh, a jewel of Egypt's long past, lost under the feet of millions for thousands of years, only to be rediscovered almost by accident. This is the story of how treasures of a long-gone empire, and in one case, a colossal symbol of royal power itself, were literally found beneath the modern streets of Cairo. It's a story of lost artifacts, hidden mountains of history, and the strange way that the ancient world can resurface in the most ordinary places. Let's begin in the present day. In 2017, archaeologists working in a working-class neighborhood of eastern Cairo were conducting what might have seemed like routine fieldwork when they uncovered something extraordinary. Beneath layers of soil, groundwater, and the foundations of everyday life in a modern metropolis, they found fragments of what at first looked like stone rubble. Until careful cleaning revealed features unmistakable to any Egyptologist, part of a massive pharaonic statue thought to date back more than 3,000 years. At first, the pieces were believed by some to depict the legendary Pharaoh Ramses II, one of Egypt's most powerful and well-known rulers, whose reign stretched from 1279 to 1213 BCE, and whose monuments once towered over temples across the Nile Valley. After further study and consultation with Egypt's antiquities officials, the latest interpretation suggests the statue may actually represent King Psammetich I, ruler of Egypt's late period from roughly 664 to 610 BCE, whose own legacy was powerful in its own right. Either way, the sheer scale of the find was breathtaking: a quartzite colossus, fragments of a head, crown, ear, and chin that could stand more than 8 meters tall if reconstructed. What makes this discovery so remarkable isn't just its size or beauty. It's the location, beneath a working-class quarter of modern Cairo, built over what was once the ancient city of Heliopolis, a thriving religious and cultural center dedicated to the sun god Re in pharaonic times. Heliopolis was one of ancient Egypt's oldest cities, a place where priesthoods, temples, and royal worship intersected for millennia. Today, the urban sprawl of Cairo spreads unbroken over much of that ancient landscape, covering burial sites, temples, and palaces with paved streets and concrete rooftops. But beneath that modern surface lies a buried world, and sometimes, history finds a way to push itself upward into the light again. This story begins with a question that has captivated archaeologists and travelers alike for centuries: what treasures of ancient Egypt are still lost beneath the sands and soil? Modern Cairo, for all its traffic and construction, sits literally atop millennia of civilization, from pre-dynastic villages to grand temples of the Old Kingdom, and from Hellenistic palaces to Islamic-era mansions. Each layer of history was built upon the last, like geological strata of human ambition, belief, power, and art. When the colossal statue fragments were unearthed in 2017, they weren't discovered in a pristine archaeological zone. There were no sweeping desert vistas, no controlled excavation grid. These pieces were found amidst garbage, residential foundations, and the everyday hum of city life, revealing just how close ancient Egypt lies to the surface of the world today. The initial discovery was made by a joint Egyptian-German mission, working amid difficult conditions: rising groundwater, industrial waste, and debris from generations of urban development. The team uncovered the bust of the statue first, and then the lower part of the head and even the remains of the crown and portions of the ear. Researchers believe the statue originally stood on the site of a temple devoted to the sun god, a monumental symbol of royal connection to divine power. Though inscriptions confirming the statue's subject haven't yet been found, stylistic clues and the proximity to temple ruins suggest a link to royalty. Whether it is Ramses II, Psammetich I, or another ruler entirely will require more excavation, study, and perhaps a bit of luck. The key thing to understand here is this: ancient cities don't disappear, they get buried. And in places like Egypt, where human settlement stretches back thousands of years, sometimes the buried world doesn't stay hidden. Stories like this aren't only about massive sculptures, though. They reveal something deeper about how history can slip beneath our feet literally, and how treasures once thought lost can emerge again in the most surprising contexts. Consider the many artifacts that have gone missing only to resurface later in unexpected places. In 2025, for example, a 3,000-year-old gold bracelet that once adorned the wrist of Pharaoh Amenemope, a ruler of Egypt's 21st dynasty, vanished from the Egyptian Museum in Cairo while undergoing restoration. That jewel was no mere trinket. It was a beautifully crafted piece of royal regalia, adorned with deep blue lapis lazuli, prized in antiquity as a symbol of power and divinity. The bracelet was last seen in a secure restoration laboratory before disappearing during inventory preparations for an exhibition abroad. Egyptian authorities circulated images of the missing bracelet to airports, ports, and border crossings nationwide in a desperate effort to prevent its smuggling out of the country and to recover what was left of a priceless piece of history. In that case, the missing artifact wasn't uncovered under city streets, but its disappearance was tied directly to the vulnerability of ancient objects in a modern world. It underscores something important. Whether buried for millennia under urban Cairo or resting in a museum vault, Egypt's pharaonic legacy remains both fragile and deeply relevant to millions around the world. Back on the Cairo streets, the statue fragments raise another fascinating possibility. What other treasures might lie buried under modern development? Egyptologists believe that countless temples, tombs, and sculptures remain undiscovered beneath residential zones, markets, and even beneath the foundations of towering apartment buildings. Every new subway line, drainage project, or construction excavation opens the possibility of encountering the ancient past. That's because Heliopolis, where the statue was found, was one of Egypt's most important spiritual capitals. It was revered as the birthplace of the sun god, a place that predates even the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under the first pharaoh. Walking through the streets of modern Cairo, you are literally treading on layers of history that stretch back before the pyramids of Giza, a fact that is easy to forget amid the bustle and traffic. What makes discoveries like the colossal statue so compelling isn't simply the age of the artifact, it's the melding of worlds it represents: the ancient and the modern, the buried and the visible, the sacred and the everyday. Here is a relic connected to kings and temples, resting undisturbed for millennia, then found not in the desert wasteland, but beneath the neighborhood where children play and markets thrive. And yet, the story doesn't end with a single broken statue. Archaeology in Cairo and its surrounds continues to reveal a buried world that defies imagination. Entire buildings dating back 4,500 years have been found beneath Cairo, ancient mud brick structures and temple foundations that push our understanding of Egypt's earliest urban environments. These discoveries change not just museums and textbooks, but our sense of time itself. We begin to see that the history of pharaohs, gods, and ancient cities isn't someplace far away, it's woven into the very ground beneath our feet. The discovery beneath Cairo is also a reminder of something more fragile: the constant battle to preserve human history in a world defined by modern pressures. Construction, population growth, looting, political instability, and even climate change all threaten fragile archaeological layers. Each time a treasure is unearthed, it brings joy to scholars and the public, but also urgency, because every discovery competes with forces that could destroy it forever. That's why collaboration between local authorities, international researchers, and global institutions is so crucial. These finds don't just belong to Egypt, they belong to humanity. The pharaoh's legacy has shaped literature, religion, art, and imagination around the world. Every piece recovered, whether colossal stone or tiny jewel, helps tell the story of who we were, and by extension, who we are. So what can we take away from the story of the pharaoh's jewel that went missing only to be found again under modern Cairo streets? First, history never truly disappears. It only waits buried under layers of earth, pavement, and centuries of human activity. Pieces of it can remain untouched for millennia, then resurface in moments that feel like miracles. Second, archaeology is not only about deserts and tombs. It often happens in alleyways, beneath construction sites, and under streets where people live day to day. The ancient world is closer than we think. Third, preserving these treasures, physical and cultural, requires vigilance, respect, and global cooperation. Each artifact has a story, and when one goes missing or is melted down, a chapter of human history is lost forever. Finally, these discoveries remind us that time is not a straight line. Egyptian civilization didn't end. It layered itself beneath what came next: Greek rule, Roman Empire, Islamic kingdoms, Ottoman provinces, and modern nationhood. Cairo is a living palimpsest of all those eras. The pharaoh's jewel, whether a literal missing bracelet, or the colossal statue buried for centuries under the streets of Cairo, stands as a symbol of humanity's deepest continuity. It connects a bustling modern city with pharaohs who ruled thousands of years ago, with people who believed in gods and kings, in life after death, and in the enduring power of stone and gold. If this story of history unearthed under everyday life fascinated you, hit like so more people can explore how the ancient world still speaks to us today. Subscribe for deep dives into history's most astonishing revelations, where past and present intersect in ways that reshape how we see our world. And share this with someone who loves uncovering what lies beneath, because sometimes the greatest treasures are not lost, they're just waiting to be found.